Welcome to CivilNet. My guest is journalist Thomas Gorgisyan, an Egyptian Armenian based in Washington, a journalist now for the Al Tahrir newspaper in Egypt. And we're going to be talking a little bit about Egypt, but also a lot about Armenia. Thomas, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you.
I'll say Happy New Year and wish you all that good stuff in a few minutes. Let's start very briefly talking about Egypt, the vote, the referendum, the constitution, and then really spend some time talking about how all of the changes in the Middle East are affecting Armenia, Armenia's foreign policy, Armenia's place on the foreign stage. But let's start with Egypt. Shall I congratulate you on the constitution referendum vote?
I mean, it's like saying Happy New Year. It's not happy. It's not a new year. It's like, so we cannot say that it's a new Egypt is already formed, but it's in the process. You know, it's unfortunately, as we see, there is a lot of, and fortunately, as a matter of fact, there is a lot of opposition to what was happening in Egypt, simply because it's not really reflecting whatever was people trying to do in January of 2011. And that's why it's a good sign and a bad sign. A bad sign that something came out. Good sign is that people are not accepting whatever is not good for them. And this is one of the things I think, whether we call it Arab Spring or Arab Winter or any kind of season, it's the best thing that people are not anymore taking anything as it is.
But you know, maybe because we've lived in Armenia these 20 years and have learned that those quick expectations are very unreal. I mean, nation building, I don't know why anybody thinks it's supposed to be fast. So us sitting here and watching this, my only reaction is it's great because it's 3 steps forward and people are discussing actual policies and actual ideologies. Are the people of Egypt seeing it that way?
I mean, they are seeing in many ways. I mean, it's saying because it's not because usually in this kind of things you are just not, as I said and other people said, is not we are not looking for the product or the outcome of this process. We are looking at the process.
Exactly.
In the process was people like, it's like boxing. Let's say if we can, I can use this example or analogy. If it's like every time is like the other side is punching you or whatever they do under your belt, this is not a boxing, this is something else. So in politics we can say, okay, there is an outcome, somebody is going to win, sometimes going to, but it's democracy is more than that, as I assume, and many people understand that now, at least in different parts of the world with this communication, that it's not just, okay, I win the election so I can do whatever I want to do. It's I win the election so I can be the making decision, but I'm going to consider that you are there next to me or in the opposition or any place, but you are there. It's not that I am on this in the power, you know.
Well, I think I understand, and I hope that the leadership, maybe in Armenia, watching this, will also learn to worry about processes and not outcomes. But that's an editorial comment. We'll leave that aside for the moment. Let's please talk about Armenia. And
yes.
You, born and raised in Egypt, so many Armenians from Egypt, from Syria, from Lebanon, certainly from Iran, who've left over the last year, the last decade, the last 20, 30 years. And what we have now is a Middle East that is not as vibrant an Armenian community. And of course, we all talk about how sad that is and all the roots that are missing. But there's another side of this that we don't talk about, and that is that Armenia's place on the international stage is now going to, perhaps, if you agree, inadvertently, inevitably change, because there are no strong Armenian communities in these largely Arab, largely Islamic countries in order to offset the Islamic power relationship around us and with our neighbors.
Okay, it all depends on how, let's say, Armenians from Middle Eastern countries what they are going to do. I mean, in the coming few years, yeah, definitely the communities were hurt by what's going on, whether in Syria, whether in Egypt, whether before that in Iran. But in the same time, I think, I assume, I hope, I wish that Armenia we be able to get the benefit of these people. I mean, it's not just their physical presence in Armenia or in homeland, whatever you can call it, in Hyrenik, but it's a matter of how they use their understanding of that part of the world. Because at the end, as we say always, any countries, any nations relation with the world is going to be through their people. It's not just because some cable of or
Sure.
some messages from the foreign ministry or the presidency is coming out. So first, people have to realize that now something going to happen to the Armenian community. Definitely, Armenians in diaspora and in particular in Middle East were like representatives, or we call it always. We are saying, oh, they are Tespans, diplomats or popular.
Ambassadors of Armenia, sure.
Yes. So now is it going to be heard? Yes, definitely it's going to be heard. And but it depends also to with what kind of Armenian policy is going to be taken towards this country, whether they are Islamic or non-Islamic. Are going to be antagonism or like kind of okay, who cares now? Armenians are there. It all depends because at the end there is another factor which is neighborhood, which is that is your neighborhood. I know most of the Armenians think or assume or they think that they are okay Europeans or whatever they are, but in the same time, their neighbors are those people. I mean, you cannot change the neighbors, but you have to be in a good relation with your neighbors. This is different from your personal life. When you don't like your zip code, you go to another zip code, as we said.
Well, not quite, but let's back up a little bit. What we have for 2 decades in Armenia thought is that it is the presence of Armenian communities in the various Arab countries that have helped keep the policies of those countries not, if not in favor of Armenian foreign policy, at least not antagonistic. In other words, if all of the votes in the Islamic Conference over the years have not been overwhelmingly anti-Armenia and anti-Karabakh, it's largely because we have Armenian communities in Lebanon and Syria and Egypt and Iran. Are we right in worrying that with the emptying of those communities, that kind of understanding and support will lessen?
Of course, we have to be worried. I mean, of course, we have to be concerned, at least not. At least not worried at this stage of life, or at this stage of history, because we are worried. Because we have to be worried. Because if we put. From my perspective, if we put more the Armenian Azerbaijani issue in a religious perspective, we are going to hell. Let's say.
And we don't do that. But although Azerbaijan tries, they
Yes.
have not succeeded.
Yes, that's the whole idea. Always put these things in a religious perspective because otherwise it's easy to play with the emotions of the people. Definitely, it's going to be some kind of different approach. Already, this over the years. I know in Egypt, I know in other places, the so-called Islamic media were like focusing on Azerbaijan as a religious issue and Nagorno-Karabakh as a kind of they are trying to put Israel was put in the Middle East, so there is Nagorno-Karabakh is like a new Israel, whatever. All this I read it and I know about it. And even there is a propaganda machine, or let's say propaganda products coming out of Azerbaijan in the form of Arabic language literature, let's say, in regarding this issue and focusing on this emotional and religious side of the issue. So definitely it's a new challenge for us. I mean, as a matter of fact, a challenge of, I say, I put myself in the shoes of Armenia anyway.
We'll let you.
But that's not the, there is definitely there is a new challenge. There is a new understanding of this surrounding world. The world is changing, definitely. Of course, a lot of Islamic societies or countries will be formed around us. But do we are going to isolate ourselves already surrounded by like 3 or 4 Islamic countries, or we are going to be part of the reality? And how we can be part of the reality? I think this is people in Armenia, in particular, those who are decision makers, they have to be concerned. They have to think about it. They have to discuss it. It's not a matter of always put yourself in as you know, in a cocoon, and then you say, oh, they are targeting us. That's not the issue. You have to figure out how you can be part of your neighborhood or your surroundings.
Thank you, Tomas Gorgisyan, in Washington, a journalist, writer for the Al Tahrir newspaper of Egypt. Thank you for watching CivilNet.